here's part 2 of lesson 6, module 5 for you guys. Now, it tells me that the sculpture, this beautiful H sculpture, stands for like Hearst, is made of 2 different size rectangular prisms. Obviously these big ones, I'm gonna put a B on there for big, also A and B, it works out very nicely. Those are the one size prism, so that leaves only one other size prism. So that means this prism right here, this rectangular prism, 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 and that rectangular prism all are the same exact size. They're the same measurement. And it tells me one size measures 13 by 8, so that'd be the length, the width, and the height of 2. The second one is 9 by 8, that's the length, that's the width, and that's the height, by 18. This one would definitely be about 2 inches high, whereas this big one would definitely be about 18 high. So all of my yellow ones I'm going to just call A. So A. So the volume of rectangle A would be the length is 13, the width is 8, and the height is 2. Because it tells me that right there. So 8 times 2 is 16, 16 times 13. 18, carry the 1, that'd be 4, 6, 1. This is my placeholder. If I add it together, it's going to be 208. All right, so this is going to equal 208 inches cubed. Now, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of those. So I have 6 of those. So I have to take the 208 and times it by 6, because there are 6 yellow shapes. And if I take the 208 times it by 6, 6 times 8 is 48, carry the 4, drops back down, 6 times 2 is 12. So that's going to equal 1,248 inches cubed for all 6 of these yellow rectangles. So that's one measurement. That's for all 6 of them, okay? Now, for the big one, these 2 that I left white, V, volume of B, it tells me right here that the big measurement is 9 long by 8 wide by 18 tall. So 9 times 8 is 72. So 72, 9 times 8 I know is 72, times 18, 8, 16, carry the 1. 8 times 7 is 56, plus 1 is 57. That'd be 72. And if I add it together, it's going to be 6, 9, 5, and that'd be, excuse me, not 5, that'd be 2 and 1, so it's 12. So this total equals 1,296. So that's for one of these pillars, but I have 2 of them. So you can take that number and add it, 1,296 plus 1,296, or 1,296 times 2, which would equal 2,592. So this plus this is 2,592. So I have to take this number of these 6 A's and this number, which is these 2 B's, and I have to add them together. So if I take this number and this number, 1,248 plus 2,592, and I add them together, 10, that's going to be 14, 5, 6, 7, 8, carry nothing. So the total is the total volume of the sculpture. Oops. And if you aren't sure how to spell something like sculpture, make sure you just look up at the problem and so you spell it correctly. The words are all in the problems. Is 3,840, 3,840, and these are inches cubed. So you had to really break it down. You had to break it down into 8 different shapes, 6 yellow and 6 white, or 2 white. Number 3. The combined volume of 2 identical cubes is 128 centimeters cubed. So if I have a cube here, I'm just going to draw them as just boxes, like a tape model, and a cube here. These 2 cubes together, the volume would equal 128. So they're exactly the same. So I take 128, I divide it by 2, that would be 6, 12, bring down the 8, 4, 8. So I'd get 64 for the first cube and 64 for the second cube. That'd be centimeters cubed. So each of them is 64, but we know a cube is length times width times height. And we know on a cube the length, the width, and the height are the same. So it's side, side, and side. That's usually what we say on a cube. It's side times side times side. Well, we know those numbers have to be the exact same. So if I put 1 here, 1 times 1 times 1 would just be 1. 2 times 2 would be 4, times 2 would be 8. Doesn't work. 3 times 3 would be 9, 9 times 3 would be 27. So I'm just kind of guessing and checking. 4 times 4 would be 8. Excuse me, 4 times 4 would be 16. 16 times 4 would be 64. So just by guessing and checking, I figured out that these would be 4. Okay, so each length would be 4 centimeters. And that's how you would solve it. Mr. Hawbecker just last time gave you the 5. It's mainly just a guess and check kind of thing, and they'll start to stick in your head. All right, this is one of those fish tank problems. Number 4, a rectangular fish tank with a base of 24 centimeters cubed, which means I can't see the bottom here, but I can see the top. So if this was 24 centimeters cubed, the very bottom of this fish tank is also 24 centimeters cubed. That means that's just kind of like the layer, the very bottom box. I just put it on the top because of the way it's drawn. Okay, and it is filled with water and oil to the depth of 9 centimeters. The oil and water separate into 2 layers when the oil rises to the top. If the thickness of the oil layer is 4 centimeters. Now it told me right here the oil rises to the top. So that's the oil right here. And if that layer is 4 centimeters, what is the volume of the water? So we know that this is oil, and we know that this is water, or H2O. Okay, so we know the water and oil together fill up this whole thing. We also know that it is filled to a depth. The oil and water together are 9 centimeters deep or tall. Depth is when you pour something in like a fish tank. Height is when you're measuring from top to bottom. They're basically the same measurements. So that means this whole height is 9 because the depth when we pour the water in, like if we jumped in a pool and we dove down, that would be 9. If we were climbing up the side of the pool, that would be 9, like above ground pool. So if we know this is 9, we know this is 4, what would this be right here? Well, 9 minus 4 would be 5. So we know that this equals 5. Now to find the area of the water, we know the face base or the bottom of the pool would be 24 centimeters squared because it tells me that right there. So volume equals length times width times height. I know that the length and the width would be 24 centimeters, and I know the height now of the water would be 5. So 24 times 5 would be 120 centimeters cubed. So the volume of the water is 124 centimeters cubed, but when we're talking volume, what is the volume of the water? So it's 124 centimeters cubed, or you can even say that it's 120 milliliters of water. Okay, but we'd probably leave it just 120 centimeters cubed because it's asking for the volume of the tank where the water is. All right, last problem. 2 rectangular prisms have a combined volume of 432 cubic feet. Prism A has half the volume of prism B. So if we were going to draw prism A and prism B, A would look like this. B would look like this. They're the same size right now. But A is half that size. So A is just that box right there. So we have to make even boxes. So it takes a total of 3 boxes to equal this total. So if we were to do a tape diagram, we would have 3 boxes that equal 432, which means we are just taking 432 and dividing it by 3. That would be 1, that would be 6, and that would be 6. So 100, actually that would be 4, not 6. My math error. Because 4 times 3 is 12. So it's 144. So each of these boxes would end up being 144, 144, 144. And again, I will write this much neater in a bigger space problem after this. What is the volume of prism A? Prism A, so the volume of prism A equals 144 feet cubed, because it told me that it was cubic feet, feet cubed. And then prism B equals 144 plus 144 would be 288 feet cubed. If prism A has a base area of 24 feet, so if I were to draw that little rectangle right here, and I were to say that this was the base, and the way I drew it, it would be on the top, that was 24 feet. What is the height? Well, we do know that volume, let me switch colors. We do know that volume equals length times width times height. If we were given the base, we know we have the length and the width. So that means we know that that's 24 times something, which is the height, and we know that it equals 144 because we figured that out right here. Equals 144. So we're going to take the 144. 24 times something equals 144. So 144 divided by 24 would equal my something, which is my height. So when I solve all of that, 24 goes into 144 6 times. So the answer is going to be the height equals 6. Or over here you could say h equals 6 because we put an h in instead of just a blank. That's just the algebra way of writing it. You're going to see that over and over. And then it says if prism B's base is 2/3 the area of prism A's base, what is the height? Well, first I have to figure out if B is 2/3, that means B's base is going to be smaller than this. So it's going to be a much skinnier but a much taller. I drew that the wrong way. A much skinnier but a much taller base. And I can't draw the rectangle too well. Sorry about that. So if I take 2/3 of, which means times, and we know this base was 24, 2/3 of 24. So 2/3 times 24, so we're going to put 24 over 1. So that equals 2 times 24 over 3 times 1. You can do 3 or 3 times 1. I know that this 3 is going to cross cancel. If I divide 3 by 3, that's going to equal 1. If I divide 24 by 3, that's going to be 8. So that's going to equal 2 times 8 over 1 times 1, which is just going to be 16. So the base of B is 16. So again, if I draw this and it's not proportional, that means this top part is just 16. The base is just 16. So volume equals length times width times height. I know that the base is 16, the base face. So that I know that equals 16. It doesn't matter if it's 4 times 4 or 2 times 8. We just know it's 16. So 16 times the height, whatever this height is going to equal 288, which I solved up here. 288. So to figure this out, I take 288 and I divide it by 16, because 16 times something equals 288. And when I do the long division and I solve all of that, I figure out that it's going to be 18 feet. So the height is going to be 18 feet, not 18 feet squared. That just means that the height right here is going to be 18 feet. And that's how you solve it. Again, I will write this neater on another piece of paper and attach it to your work. Thanks, guys.